Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting, well, truly informed.
That's the goal.
Today, we're doing something a bit different. We've taken 10 really intense hours of global headlines, all from July 27th, 2025.
Just a snapshot in time, really.
Exactly. And our mission is to cut through all that noise, pull out the most important bits of insight, and, connect the dots for you across events that might seem totally separate.
Right.
We've got a real mix of sources for this deep dive international conflict reports, big economic shifts, and even some pretty amazing sports moments.
It's actually quite fascinating, isn't it, to see how much can change or how many different things are developing in just one 10-hour window.
It really is.
And this dive should help you understand the sort of core drivers and what it all means beyond just the quick headlines.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's unpack this. Starting with the geopolitical hotspots. Tensions are still, well, persistent. Over on the Thailand-Cambodia border, the shelling is continuing. This is even after Donald Trump called for a ceasefire.
Right, that call happened, but the reality on the ground
Is devastating.
Yeah.
Both sides are blaming each other for artillery attacks. We're hearing over 30 deaths and 200,000 people evacuated.
Right.
200,000.
That's a huge number. The human cost is just immense in these regional conflicts.
And that detail about the Trump ceasefire call,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like it didn't have much impact. What does that tell us about, the actual leverage global figures have in these deep-rooted disputes?
Well, it suggests that when national interests are really dug in and the local situation is complex and powerful, these external calls, even from major figures, can sometimes be more symbolic than effective.
Right.
Beyond the tragedy itself, the fact the shelling continues like this, it really underscores how traditional diplomacy might be losing some traction. It kind of sets a dangerous precedent, doesn't it, where conflicts can just ignore these high-profile calls for peace.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, shifting over to Gaza now. There's a specific development, though it's temporary. Israel announced a humanitarian pause, so Israeli forces are suspending activity, but only from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and only in certain areas to let aid get through. These pauses, they're obviously vital for getting aid in, right?
Oh, absolutely critical. You need those windows to get essential supplies to civilians. And they do fit into sort of broader conflict management tactics.
Right.
But the insight here, I think, is that while they're essential, these pauses are often less about genuinely de-escalating the conflict and more about managing the immediate humanitarian crisis within it. It's a temporary fix in a very long-standing, deeply entrenched issue.
Got it.
And just to be clear for you listening, we're presenting these facts straight from the source material. We're not endorsing any side here, obviously. It's an incredibly sensitive situation.
Understood. Okay, now Moscow. Russia is accusing Kyiv and its Western allies of rejecting diplomatic efforts regarding Ukraine. And the Kremlin is saying this refusal justifies their ongoing military operations. This narrative, it feels familiar somehow.
It does, doesn't it? And a key thing to grasp from this is how the rhetoric around diplomacy gets used, almost weaponized in these conflicts.
Abso.
Well, accusing the other side of rejecting dialogue is a common way to frame your own military actions as, necessary or even defensive. Like, we had no choice.
Right, they wouldn't talk.
Exactly. It really highlights why it's so critical to understand the narratives coming from all sides. Not to pick a side, but just to see how these claims are shaping global perception and justifying actions on the ground.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And sticking with geopolitics, this next one is quite telling, I think. Russia has started its first regular passenger flights between Moscow and Pyongyang in decades.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and apparently the tickets for that first flight sold out really fast. What's the bigger picture on this one?
This is much more than just an airline route opening up. It's a really potent geopolitical signal, wouldn't you say?
Definitely feels like it.
It suggests Russia is actively looking to solidify alliances outside the usual Western sphere, maybe securing alternative supply chains or different strategic partnerships. And for North Korea, it's a potential economic lifeline. Bringing back direct travel after so long indicates a very deliberate move. It's about strengthening ties in what feels like a shifting global order. Raises questions about what this signals, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, let's shift gears now to economic signals and some unexpected impacts, too. Starting with China.
Okay.
Industrial profits there fell again in June, down 4.3% month on month. And this is happening amid steep producer deflation. That term, producer deflation, sounds important. Can you break down what that really means for China and maybe for the rest of us?
Absolutely. So producer deflation basically means the prices factories are getting for their goods as they leave the gate, those prices are falling.
Okay, so they're selling stuff for less.
Exactly. Which means less revenue for the same amount of stuff produced. That squeezes profit margins for businesses, right? Then that can lead to them cutting back on investment, maybe even jobs.
And for the wider economy.
For China overall, it signals weaker demand, perhaps, or maybe they just have too much supply. And because China is so central to, global manufacturing and trade, those effects, those ripples can definitely be felt worldwide. It impacts supply chains, global commodity prices, all sorts of things.
Right. Yeah. And this is interesting. Almost at the exact same time this is happening, we hear a high-level U.S. business delegation is heading to China this week.
Oh, who's involved?
Executives from places like FedEx, Boeing,
Yeah.
the U.S.-China Business Council.
Mm-hmm.
They're set to meet with Chinese officials. It seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? Economic headwinds, but top U.S. businesses are still going over.
It's a fascinating juxtaposition, yeah.
So what do these meetings signal about trade relations, especially with this economic backdrop?
Well, I think this is a really critical point. Despite China's current challenges, the profit decline, the deflation we just talked about, this U.S. business visit, highlights that there are still ongoing, very pragmatic efforts to keep economic ties going, to keep the dialogue going.
With all the political noise.
Exactly. It suggests a recognition, maybe, that their economic fates are just so intertwined despite the tensions and the problems. It signals that, beneath the headlines, the drive for business opportunities and stability is still really powerful. What will come of these meetings is the big question, of course.
Definitely one to watch.
Yeah.
Now, beyond market forces, China's also dealing with some devastating climate impacts. Heavy rain in northern China.
Yeah, I saw reports on that.
It's killed 2 people, forced thousands to relocate. Specifically, over 3,000 evacuated in Hebei province. Flash floods, rising dam levels.
The immediate human cost is just awful, and it really underlines the huge challenges these extreme weather patterns are posing, not just there, but globally. It shows that even the biggest economies are increasingly vulnerable to environmental shifts. It makes things like infrastructure resilience, disaster preparedness. These become urgent global priorities, not just local problems.
That's a great point. Okay, so while we've got these huge global shifts, geopolitics, economics, climate, climates, it's interesting that this same 10-hour window on July 27th also showed us a different kind of dynamism. Individuals pushing the absolute limits in sports, sometimes reflecting that same drive for breakthrough we see elsewhere. So let's lighten the mood a bit, spotlight some sports highlights from these hours.
That's good.
Okay, baseball first. Red Sox pitcher Garrett Crochet, apparently he was just lights out against the Dodgers, struck out 10 batters in only 6 innings, helped them get a 4-2 win.
Wow, 10 strikeouts in 6 innings against the Dodgers. That's really something. It's that individual brilliance, isn't it? It just highlights the incredible skill, the precision, the dedication it takes to dominate at that level, especially against a top team. It reminds you that even in team sports, one person's mastery can totally change the game.
Totally. And another baseball feat. Mariners catcher Cal Raleigh. He hit his 40th home run. It's not even August yet.
40 already? That's huge.
Get this. He's the first catcher and the first switch hitter ever to hit 40 homers before August. And the Mariners are apparently closing in on their division lead. That combination, catcher and switch hitter, that's pretty unique for a record like this.
It really is unique. What's fascinating there is how a player can just redefine what we think is possible for a position.
Right.
I mean, breaking records is always impressive, but for a catcher, think about the physical toll of that position and hitting from both sides of the plate. That's not just about glory. It shows this incredible mix of power, consistency, adaptability, and that directly lifts the whole team, helps fuel that division chase. It says a lot about how athletes are evolving, the training they do now.
Absolutely. But maybe the most, captivating story from the sports world in this window. A 12-year-old swimmer, Yu Zidi from China, 12 years old, reached the 200-meter individual medley semifinals at her World Championships debut in Singapore.
Goodness. That's extraordinary. To see talent like that on the world stage at that age.
It's hard to even imagine. What does it actually take for someone that young to compete at that level?
Yeah.
And, what does this signal for swimming's future?
Well, it takes more than just raw talent, obviously, though clearly she has immense natural ability. But it also requires incredibly structured training, really advanced coaching, and just remarkable mental strength, especially for a 12-year-old.
Yeah, the pressure.
Exactly. Her success, it might signal a shift in swimming, towards identifying and nurturing talent even younger, which raises all sorts of interesting questions about athlete development, burnout, peak performance ages. It's fascinating.
Truly remarkable. So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we? In just this 10-hour snapshot.
Hmm.
Geopolitics, economics, sports, it's a lot to digest.
It really is. And I think the value is exactly that, stepping back, seeing how these different headlines, things that might seem totally unrelated,
Yeah.
they actually paint this complex, interconnected picture of the world right now, understanding how they link up. That's where the real knowledge comes in, the kind you can actually use.
Couldn't agree more. So as you, our listener, go about your day, maybe cue on this final thought we want to leave you with.
Mm.
What does this really intense, packed 10-hour window tell us about just the sheer pace of change in the world today? And maybe how often do things that seem small or isolated, like one athlete breaking a specific record or a new flight route opening up, how often do those things actually signal much bigger underlying shifts or trends that are going to affect all of us down the line?
That's a great question. Something to definitely